outstanding. I mean, to be in the physical presence of such a legend as Bob Harris, and some of the stories that he was telling, for me, resonated completely, because talking about the old records that he used to play on his downset system and some of the old DJs like Roger Scott, you know, this is the story of my youth, really, growing up in the 70s and the 80s. So to be not just with Bob, but also with Graham Gouldman in the same room, made me feel quite humbled. So yeah, it was a fantastic evening. And of course, there's no one better than those two guys to talk to us about music.
It was a rare opportunity to see two legends on the stage together. Les, a legend in advertising, and Bob, obviously a legend in music. And I think that tension of those two worlds was, yeah, it was fascinating.
Everything went so well, and the guest speakers that we had, Les Binet, he's a legend in his field. Tara Austin, she's a legend in her field, and then to be led by the legendary Whispering Bob Harris, I think it just sewed it up completely.
For us as a charity to get the opportunity to have this kind of awareness, and also the content of the event, which is about music and advertising, that's really interesting for us, because one of the things that we do at Nordoff Robbins is we use music as a way to connect to people. So to understand how music is used in other parts of business and marketing and advertising is really important to make that kind of association. So I found the evening insightful, interesting. I love Bob, I think Bob's a legend, so to be able to have the opportunity to come and be part of what has been a fabulous evening has been great for us, and just looking forward to the next one.
During the course of the next 8 months, in fact, we're going to be exploring the impact of music on us, on our souls and on our hearts, and I'll be introducing during this time some of the great experts of music in this country who have put music in the forefront of the way we react to music. For me, this is a huge learning curve, because I've been lucky, amazingly lucky, to have music as the center of my life, professionally for nearly 50 years. But as a person for much, much longer than that. I remember as a child, sort of when I was 10, 11 years old, at my parents' home, my parents had a cellar, Ardington Road in Northampton, and I had my dance set record player down in the cellar. I really was that young boy with a dance set record player, buying rock and roll 45s.
A lot of advertising works not by telling people things, but by making people feel things. And we've tended to talk about advertising as a communications medium, like this is something, a way of getting a message across. And increasingly, what we see in the research is that, yes, some advertising does work like that, but a lot of it works by making people feel something rather than telling them something. And that's where music comes in, I think, is that music has that power to evoke those emotions and feelings, those very visceral responses that you talk about with your dance set in the basement, you know. That stuff matters because it ultimately has a really big effect on people's behaviour and sells things.
The reason that music comes last, almost universally music comes right at the very end of the process, is because it's much easier for us to talk about the visual and whether the salt is on the left or the right of the screen, and the end line and the language and the message and the words that we're going to use, and we place so much over importance on those particular words and that particular order of things, because those are the things that we can talk about with our client. It's all very rational and it's right there in front of us, whereas how the music makes us feel is so much more difficult to explain.
Anyone who works in advertising will care about the ads and will care about the craft and the artistry of it all, but at the end of the day we're also selling stuff, and the people who are funding all this stuff are only doing it because ultimately it makes more money for their businesses. So we're both in art and in business, aren't we?
It's a commercial art form. I mean, that's why I love my job so much, actually. The truth of it is that it is applying art and creativity to real world business problems.
I remember in the 70s when I was doing the old grey whistle test, you know, one of the things having your music used on an ad was a very, very uncool thing. It really, really was, because, you know, then, oh, you sold out, man. You know, it was, wasn't it? And people, it was even, you know, a bit in the mentality of you can appear on the old grey whistle test, but you can't do top of the pops. Do you know what I mean? There was that snobbery, wasn't there, about all of this kind of stuff in those days. We see a situation now that could not be more different from that. So you never felt that feeling of, no, you know, it's a sellout to put music into commercials?
I've never really felt it, you know. If you know, you're talking about the emotion of music and how much it means, if it can be used in something that helps us, that I don't have any problem with it at all.
Agencies are run by egotistical creatives who just want to be given free rein and no one to play with any of their toys and say, no, you really must play with this toy this time because actually this toy is going to give you the most fun. They're like, no, fuck that, I want to play with these toys and I want all of the toys.
About 20 to 30% of the sales you generate can be attributed to the choice of music. So if you
that in your negotiations.
yeah, well, I mean, it literally means that the choice of the music track. So, I mean, think about that John Lewis thing. You know, that the millions of pounds of extra profit that are being generated by that, and about 20 to 30% of that, it comes down to the choice of the music track.
John Dever leaving on a jet plane. The guy died in a plane accident. I mean, like, some due diligence wasn't really done there, but they obviously thought, you know, leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Like, is that really what you want from your BA flight? I think not.
I mean, I've loved this. I've loved the experience. This has been a huge learning experience for me tonight, and we will continue these conversations through the winter. We're having a session every month, aren't we, between now and I think right through to next May or June. I can't wait. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge too, actually, everyone who's contributed. It's been a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Agencies tend to think of audio and sound as an afterthought, whereas I think with the effectiveness conversation from Cannes, from this year, we're trying to say actually effectiveness is important, and the marriage of effectiveness and music and long-termism can greatly benefit brands and their agencies so that they can be creative and effective, but also, you know, make more sales, get a return on investment, and really hit their targets and their goals by understanding what they're actually doing with sound rather than just sticking something on the end.
I'm hoping that people will start to spread the word. I'm hoping that this is intended to be disruptive in an industry that's been stuck around sound, and I think the questions that are coming up and the answers that we're finding and we're providing for people will stimulate that conversation. And you know, it's a conversation that's got to be had, and because music is just so important and so powerful.